killer Amelia Dyer, born 1829, nursing in 1869 in England. Weapon of choice, starvation, then strangulation. Amelia was a baby farmer. Baby farmers used their homes to house young women who were pregnant with illegitimate children and foster those babies until another family would either adopt them, if ever. This is the Victorian period in England, so well-to-do families like the governess could not have their daughters having illegitimate babies out in the open. It would ruin their reps. So they would send them off to these homes like Amelia's, and they would stay there while they were pregnant, and then she would adopt the unwanted baby for a lump sum fee. Baby farming was a common business back then and was way more lucrative than nursing, which is why she switched to this. Now, the money was supposed to be used to be cared for the baby. Trigger warning, baby killing details, stop if this is too much. Instead, she would dope the babies up on alcohol and opium so they wouldn't eat, which saves money on food. And they end up starving to death. But starving to death takes time. If the baby was gone, then she could pocket money faster and get new mothers and babies into the rotation in her house. This is where the strangulation came in. She would use dressing tape to wrap around the babies' necks and strangle them to death. Some of the mothers who left their babies would come back, checking on the babies, trying to see what's going on and how they're doing. And she would just make up some lie, or she would show them someone else's baby to make them leave. To get more babies in the house, meaning more money, she would advertise in the classifieds saying she and her husband, which she was not married at the time, were looking for a baby to care for. These desperate women would come to her thinking they're giving their baby up to this safe, loving couple in a great home, pay her a fee, and then give her their baby. She would go back to her home, which was basically a baby killing factory, where her daughter helped her, and they would just flat out kill these babies and dispose of the bodies in the river. This happened over a period of at least 20 years. At this point, babies are being fished out of the river, wrapped up like parcel packages, found with tape wrapped around their necks. And one day, a man found a package floating down the Thames River. Remember, this is England, 1800s, so the rivers were used a lot to ship cargo and bulky items. I probably thought, oh, a package fell off a cargo ship, let me get it. Well, it wasn't a regular package. It was the dead body of a baby girl that Amelia killed and wrapped up in parcel paper and threw it in the river. But she didn't weigh it down enough, so instead of it sinking, it floated down to this guy. She got caught because the wrapping paper she used had an address on it that was linked back to her. She was arrested in April of 1896 at the age of 57 and confessed saying, "You will know all of mine by the tape around their necks." What? The jury took 5 minutes to find her guilty and sentence her to death by hanging. It is said that she is responsible for an estimated 400 infant deaths over a 20-year period, making her one of history's most infamous baby farmer serial killers of all time. And that was Nurses Who Kill.
This is Amelia Dyer, also known as the Reading baby farmer. She was a foster parent who cared for infants until a permanent home could be found. During the late 1800s, parents would pay her to look after their illegitimate children. Dyer told the parents that she would look after them well and that they would have promising futures, although she would just take the money and murder the babies. She was finally arrested when their tiny corpses were found floating down the River Thames. They were usually wrapped in parcel paper and stamped with her address. Her defence tried to argue that she wasn't guilty by way of insanity, although after just 5 minutes the jury found her guilty and she was sentenced to death. She was hung later that year. She was only formally charged with one death, but it is thought that she killed over 300 babies in total.
Alrighty guys, here's my Monday case. This is an unfortunate case from the late 1800s that just might make you feel some type of way. Meet Amelia Dyer, born in 1837 in Bristol, UK. When you hear this story, it kind of makes me feel like she might have been the somewhat of an inspo for Miss Trunchbull in Matilda. Amelia sure had a not so lovely childhood, as she was the main caretaker for her mentally ill mother, but she did use her experience as a caretaker to develop a career as a nurse, a career in caretaking, a career in healing others. Would have been gracious of her as a nurse, but instead she used her status as a nurse to become a baby farmer. Baby farming was a practice in the Victorian era where baby farmers would care for unwanted or unable to be cared for babies / children that were born to unwed mothers, mostly prostitutes. Abortion was highly illegal and contraception was scarce. Let's hope I'm not bringing her to me because now I feel like I'm choking. The baby farmers would take in the babies for a fee from the mothers and would find foster families for these babies or children. However, Amelia here would not be placing these babies or children with foster families, nor would she even look for one. Instead, Nurse Dyer here would murder, mostly by strangulation, all that came into her hands. Not knowing the exact total, because let's face it, as long as the babies were placed with somebody rather than an unwed mother, they were happy over there. It is said that it could be as many as 400 babies. She was caught in 1870s, we'll say early 1870s, and she spent a couple decades in prison and jail, and Amelia Dyer was executed in 1896. Her hatred for these children makes me feel like she is the inspiration for Trunchbull. What do you guys think? Let me know. Bye.
I am Amelia Dyer, a notorious Victorian serial killer who is believed to have murdered between 250 and 400 infants and children. I was born in 1837, in the English county of Bristol. I began my killing spree in the late 1800s, hunting vulnerable women who wanted to give up their illegitimate children for adoption. I pretended to be a farmer raising babies and adopted such babies for an adoption fee. However, instead of taking care of the babies, I would kill them and dump their bodies in the Thames or nearby fields. My murderous activities were exposed in 1896 when the body of a child was found in the river by a barge driver, and several other bodies were found in a nearby field. I was arrested and tried for murder. The court found me guilty and I was executed by hanging on June 10, 1896. My last words were, "I have nothing to say." My case became famous as an example of Victorian criminal brutality, and the term child farmer became synonymous with child murderers.
Confession of 400 infants killed. My name is Eli Elizabeth Dan, and I am one of the worst serial killers of the 19th century. I was born in Brussels in 1800 and grew up in poor conditions. When my husband died, I opened an illegal baby farm in Reading, where I offered to care for unwanted babies for money. But instead of caring for them, I murdered them and disposed of their bodies. I used opium to overdose some of the infants, while others I hung with ribbons or pillows. I even enjoyed watching them die with tape around their necks. For 30 years, I killed around 400 infants, one child a month on my baby farm. These were children who should have had a better life under my care than what their mothers could have offered them. But my reign of terror came to an end when the police found the body of an infant in the River Thames, and the address on the parchment paper led them to my house. A search of the river at Reading found 5 other murdered children. The scandal led to a sensational trial, and I was found guilty of the murder of 400 enfants. I was hanged on the 10th of June 1896. Looking back, I know what I did was unforgivable and inhumane. My story let us all remember that every life is precious and deserves to be treated with respect and care. May my horrific actions never be repeated, and may we all strive to create a world where every child is given the love and care they deserve.